reverse gatlings is something that Jam has at her, like in her arsenal, that some other characters don't have as much of. But you can do all kinds of silly things. I mentioned this a little bit earlier with talking about normals and what gatlings in and out. But like, if you're playing Jam and you want to practice reverse gatlings and stuff, a good thing to do is just set your opponent to block. Figure out what you like in terms of, you know, some block strings you might use more than others, but, you know, another common question is, how do I work on block strings? It's like, figure out what gatlings in and out of what else, what you can do. There's all kinds of stuff that you can gatling in and out of with Jam, which is why she can be so scary. Like, this is a really important tool to utilize, and if you're not using reverse gatlings to like confuse your opponent and use different normals, you're playing like half of the character. The other half is obviously gorilla, frame traps, and damage, but like a lot of Jam and playing Jam is confusing your opponent, and reverse gatlings are a great way to do that. Something like this. So,
Excellent.
If I can get
Set
it
it off
to
like
mash.
Exodus. Ladies and gentlemen, focus on the swinging of the pendulum. Good for nothing.
How do I do
Hold your
this?
tongue like
So
a
I'll do-
frenulum. Catch me at the aqueduct. Had a couple ponies pay the charges I've been racking up. Homegirl tried to catch me, had to let her know I'm no good for acting, except for acting up. You can catch the acupuncture if you act a punk. Pack 'em in and pack 'em up. Jump around, rounding up the fakers for the break 'em in. Paper thin, crumble out.
I think because of the range it like traded, but
went from touch to honest Dave, not a grade, modern grade. Not a game. Topless since I got in shape. Show it off, not ashamed.
there we go. That's kind of what I wanted to show. This is a frame trap. 5K, 5H. They're mashing between that gap, and you're not like kind of how I was like right next to them. It usually won't trade. It'll like outright beat mashing and give you counter hit 5H, which is scary by itself. But you can do stuff like 5K, 5K, 5H. 5K is a frame trap, or I mean, yeah, it's a frame trap. It's pulse one. So if they're mashing, this will counter hit as well. Blah 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 blah
Counter
blah blah, and you get
LOL, BRB, SMH, smiley
you know,
face,
stuff like that.
Hope you have a pleasant day. My favorite
So utilizing gatlings, knowing what gatlings into what, and changing up your pressure as much as possible is very important into playing Jam.
When I ain't spitting lightning, I be drinking lemonade. My gotta shield your eyes from all the light I emanate. My early shit was a big influence on Hemingway. This fly, in love and memory of Dwight's pops, patron saint of the fish fry. In NY, pigs post pics of the pigsty. Get a load of this shit, get a load of this guy. Knuckle to your head, bro, like hello,
So yeah,
fly. All of y'all
that's
look
just
alike, look alive.
like
Just in the nick of time, I pop my
an
lips,
example
lick
of
like
some
a nickel
nutty
nine
things you can do with
snare,
reverse
erythromycin on a
gatlings. So
simple mind.
My horse drinks on his own. I ain't
it's like when you're looking at it, it's sometimes very hard to like look at those normals and as they're coming out decide like what to do. And you know, obviously the dummy's record blocking everything. It changes a little bit when you IB and when you FD and things like that. But reverse gatlings give you the opportunity to kind of like play around with your pressure and change it into different block strings and mix it up a little bit more. So I encourage everybody to go into training mode, get used to gatlings and get used to stuff, and there's certainly common block strings that I feel like most people use, or a lot of people use when playing Jam, but you can always come up with your own and you can always figure out what works for you, which is very free form, and spending time in training while working on block strings is a thing that I would encourage people to do. Next thing is pressure on regular block IB, FD, and jump out. I'm gonna try and keep it like fairly short because I feel like my advice on these topics isn't as like long and you know, long-winded as was on everything else, and I kind of want to keep it a little shorter. It's already like 2 hours 45 minutes. So basically, I think the thing that gets asked fairly commonly is like, how do I keep my pressure up? What do I do about pressure? Which is something that I was talking about earlier. Like, how do I deal with pressuring my opponent? They just keep, blocking me out or something, or they keep doing all this other. They keep defending me. How do I mix it up? I kind of talked about this before with 2H, where like if they start IBing 2H, you have to use 2D, otherwise you're recovering 2H, and you're -4, and they can like mash out and kill you. So in that situation, start using 2D, and then start using jump cancels or J2K or other stuff, 2D, 226SK, and then you get into a whole nother thing about mix-ups. But the thing that them FDing tells me is like he's pushing himself out. So like what I commonly see is they'll FD like right here, where that's gonna be hard to time, but I'd like to show it. So, well, actually, I think there's a way to set that, isn't there? Block settings after first hit. I guess everything. Block switching. Block type. False. Yeah. So, when they start FDing stuff, this like normal pressure that you do that's like, starts whiffing, right? Well, the thing you have to realize is that they're more minus. So like, if you see them actively FDing, or you see somebody who like always just FDs all over your stuff, like this gives you more frame advantage. You can do crazier pressure and like do reset stuff and force them to press a button. Like if I think somebody's gonna FD and press 2S or something, or like try to run up 5K or something like that, I might just go straight over them and like try to counter hit them out of whatever they're doing with like an IED, JH low or something like that. This is probably even more real on FD, because I feel like if it's +1 on regular blocks, it's probably like +4 on FD. So like redash, when you see an opponent FDing a lot, this gives you the opportunity to like do whiff normals into more pressure. If your 2S hits, this is actually something I do with like kind of doing stagger pressure, is I'll do something like // or 2/2S 5K, like I mentioned before with wrist baiting. It's also good for pressure in situations where like I'm doing the same input over and over, but it just depends on the spacing, like whether if I'm super deep, // or close/2S will hit and they'll FD it, but 5K will whiff. And then you get like redash pressure, or you can try and like defend if they're FDing and bait out a button, get them to whiff, and like get your own counter hit or something like that. But if I'm doing this input and I'm super deep, 2S will hit, 5K will whiff, and then you get like micro dash or stuff like that. If you're far though, 2S will whiff, and that's where, if you see on the left, I'm still pressing 5K. So that's kind of like an OS, I guess, in a way. But that's the thing to try on FD. Some people like FD you out and then be mashing. There's other solutions to that, like if you see that happening, you can try and catch them out with 2D or 2S instead. There's all defense to that degree in Guilty Gear kind of gets more complicated, so it kind of depends. But that's just kind of like the very beginning of that whole mind game. As for IB, that one's kind of harder to deal with in a way, because your opponent definitely does need to IB, but the thing about IB is that they're cranking their risk gauge more. So like FDing reduces your risk gauge, and IBing increases it. So in a lot of times where somebody's IBing your pressure, they're looking for a specific they're usually looking for like a specific gap in your pressure. Like people will start IBing this thing, this 2H reset, so that you can't do like the 5K resets and stuff like that, because as I mentioned before, you're -4 on the second hit of 2H if they IB it. So they'll do like IB try to throw. Well, in that case, you go to the next thing, or try to like, I guess to play more defensively, you can see that they're IBing, get to a point where you have a jump cancel one normal or something like that, and then back off a little bit if you think they're gonna like try to do something to punish you. If they're IBing in a situation where like you're IDing at them, they can sometimes grab you out if you're too high. Like if you're doing JH like way up here and they IB it, that's a free grab for them. If you do it low enough though, it just kind of like there's, I don't think, a big enough gap between the amount that your JH recovers and you pressing the next button. I think you recover in time to not get thrown. That was like an example of one that would get thrown, but like super low. I think the most important thing with FD and IB, or actually with just IB and learning to defend against it or react to it or kind of deal with it, is knowing you yourself what the spots are where it would be bad if they IB'd, and what you can do from there to make whatever you're doing safer. Sometimes it's even worth it to spend meter, if not to make yourself safer, to try and keep yourself out of, you know, a punish, or maybe counter hit them if they're trying to punish you for something. Like there's all kinds of things that you can do in that situation. So the other thing that gets mentioned fairly often is jump. How do I deal with jumping? How do I deal with them jumping out of all my stuff? I wonder if I can do this. Is it blocking? Block switching? No, yeah. I want block switching. Block setting is everything. I'm gonna set them to faultless, because a lot of the time when they're just jumping out, they're gonna like fuzzy and try to just jump out FD. Actually, I wonder if setting this to jump would work. Yeah. So I guess try to like keep your dummy standing for as long as possible. But I think the most common answer that I have to my opponent jumping out is just like IED pressure will keep them from jumping out, as you saw in that kind of case, if you can do it tight enough. Or this is, I guess, just more for if they're up backing. Like if they're, oh, I guess in that case it even, like in that situation, it even caught his jump out because there's such a small gap. Just like the very, or maybe I triggered that. Yeah, in that case it caught his jump out. I guess at any point you see them like actually get hit, he's not blocking everything. Doing IED pressure, doing doing puffball pressure, just anything to like force them to stay on the ground. I think I tend to default to IED the most. Yeah, and like the gap there was so small after that 6H that after landing with that FD, the bot tried to jump and got caught out of his jump startup by 6H. So that's kind of how you change your pressure up a little bit for catching jump out. There's other answers to it as well that are sometimes either more risky or harder call out or whatever else, but that's kind of a basic one. Just something to try and keep in mind. So the other thing, last two things I was going to talk about rather. Card priority. That's a question that actually gets asked fairly often, I would say. I think it kind of comes and goes, but obviously you have these two charge cards, right? And as I said before, all the properties are listed and all the other stuff, so I'm not going to go over that too much. I'm going to talk more about the theory behind it. Ryujin is really good in spaces where, like, you want to poke out of something. So what's the thing? So I guess if I try to do this to you.